GOP lawmakers in Georgia passed a bill on Wednesday to punish employers that make it easier for workers to form unions, sending the legislation to Republican Governor Brian Kemp for his signature. Senate Bill 362 would bar companies from receiving state economic incentives if they voluntarily recognize a union instead of requiring employees to vote in a secret ballot election. It is aimed at discouraging a process known as card check, whereby workers can unionize simply by showing there's majority support in the form of signed union cards. Although Kemp has indicated that he backs the legislation, it is likely to face legal challenges on the grounds that it conflicts with federal labor law. Republicans denied that the bill is anti-labor, saying it aims to protect workers' privacy. Some, including Kemp, argue that the secret ballot protects workers from being bullied into joining unions. Here's what State Rep Sue Hong said. Nothing in the bill stops a union from being formed. We are ensuring that when the state invests state resources to drive job creation, that hardworking Georgians who hold those jobs have the agency to determine whether to be represented by a labor union. Governor Brian Kemp spoke out in favor of this bill back in January. Kemp proclaimed his support for the bill in a January speech to the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, echoing the chamber's own agenda. He said the move would protect workers' right to opportunity from President Joe Biden's pro-union agenda and outside forces who want nothing more than to see the free market brought to a screeching halt. Only 4.4% of Georgia workers are union members, the 8th lowest rate among states. This is a trend among Republican governors who are increasing their attacks on unions as well. South Carolina GOP governor blasted labor unions while touting economic growth in his annual address. DeSantis leads Republican states' attacks against public sector unions, and you can see examples throughout the country. From Florida to Alaska, workers are facing legal efforts to weaken their power by targeting union certification and dues. Polling shows that the majority of Americans see the large reduction in the share of workers represented by unions over the past several decades as a bad thing for both the country and working people in the US. You can see here the total number of people, it's a net bad at 54%. Brett, I want to bring you in here. What do you make of this? Do you think that this is really about workers having autonomy and a choice? Or is this about Biden's pro-labor agenda? What are they really doing here? Whose interests are they serving?
Before we continue with the story, we depend on members to keep on going. Don't wait. Click join now on YouTube.
This is not about card check. There's plenty of reasons to have a discussion about whether card check versus secret ballot are the best way to go. Like that is a very valid discussion. Whether people get bullied all the time out of being in a union, right? That happens. You can't deny that it happens, right? But when that person from the Georgia state whatever legislature says, listen, we're not anti-union at all. We're for worker privacy. That is bull. The entirety of this whole BS right to work legislation, right to work state movement that completely gutted the working class, specifically in the Rust Belt and all over and all the way down the South. Like they just want to keep wages low. They are just pro-corporation. They are just pro-business. That is all it is about. They want to take away, because a union is just a bargaining tactic. It is a bargaining technique. Decide to be in one, decide not to be in one based on what your objectives are. It is a tool. And so that the people in the Republican side of the aisle don't want you to ever have that tool. So they'll do the stuff that they do with abortion, where they're like, we're not against abortion. We're just going to make it so that we're going to make it hard to have an abortion clinic in your state. That's what this kind of legislation is. They make it harder for you to do the thing that they don't want you to do in the first place.
The pushback is partially because of some of the pro-union provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act. They tried to push the PRO Act, which would have granted a bunch of new protections for unions and union organizing. They couldn't do that. Even there were just a couple senators short of those that had endorsed it. So between the Inflation Reduction Act and some other things through the National Labor Relations Board, there have been great advancements under the Biden administration for union organizing. Republicans see that and think, whoa, we can't let workers have too much power here. The corporations are going to lose control. So they're pushing back in this kind of a way, and framing it as a worker choice or worker autonomy thing is ridiculous, because what they really want to do is undercut membership and people paying dues so that unions don't have power at all. By saying, oh, well, you should have a right not to join. Well, in some places, you might still get the benefits, but you're just not paying dues into the union. No, you should chip in. You're getting those benefits and they bargain for you. You should chip in. So you saw that in places like Ohio. You saw that in places like Wisconsin. They really sought to undercut the membership. Oh, the Janus decision out of the Supreme Court was terrible on that front. But what they're trying to do is continue to chip away at union power and the ability to form a union, because they know deep down, by letting workers have power, by letting workers collectively bargain, it's harder on corporations, it's harder on those Republican donors to maximize profits. That's what this is all about.
When it comes down to it, you can, anyone when they're deciding to join a union or not, think of it as a tool for negotiation. It's similar to like, in Hollywood, it's like, should I have an agent and a manager, or just an agent or a lawyer? Like, well, what do you want? And in that scenario, get what you want. That's the and see, everything is a tool to get it. For a lot of people, traditionally in America, specifically when you're talking federal jobs, when you're talking major industries, the union can help you get there better, faster. And there's a lot of caveats along the way. There's a lot of ways you can leverage it on, use the unionization as like a looming way to say like, let's get more stuff until we do the union. Like there's a process, all the same way when you're negotiating any kind of contract. At the end of the day, the Republicans don't want you to even have that as an option, because they know the historical successes it's been able to get for people. The threat of it when you're entering a pre-unionization negotiation, and then the reality of it once you're in there and it's hard to fire people. Like, that's the kind of stuff that like they don't want you to have the tools. Meanwhile, those same legislators are creating more and more and more and more and more tools for the CEOs of the major corporations to, they got rid of your weapon and they're just making more weapons for themselves in negotiations, whether it's through globalization, whether it's through trying to get subcontractors in different places, getting rid of workplace safety standards. Those are all the things. That is the meta description of the difference between traditionally the two parties when it comes to workplace negotiations.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.